Well, hello there. This is Shuttle Street in Glasgow, and the modern building just behind me with the pointy end sits almost exactly on the site of what used to be a Franciscan Friary in medieval times. And Shuttle Street used to sit just on the eastern edge of that friary. And you know, I've always thought that while there is modern buildings getting built here, there is also a nearby area that has largely been unbuilt on for a long time. And I'm talking in particular about the rectangular ground between Shuttle Street, High Street on the eastern edge, College Street on the southern edge, and George Street on the northern edge. That rectangular ground, which also includes Nicholas Street, which looks just like a little lane, but it's called Nicholas Street. And it's probably a good reason why some of it hasn't been built on. The north side of College Street, for example, that bit of land which is kind of derelict and has been for a long time, sits over the railway tunnel. And I imagine that's why it's not been built on. I dare say it's not impossible to build in such a scenario, but I dare say it just costs an awful lot more money to do so. And further to the north in that rectangle of land, you have a garden was built a while back, but it's now getting dismantled and has been shifted further up the High Street, other side of George Street. And then just on the edge of that, you've got a rather lovely red sandstone building, which is the only building left in that rectangle of ground, bordered by these streets as I just mentioned. It was built in 1895 as the British Linen Bank's branch. Rather lovely structure. I dare say it's get certain protection to stop things happening to it and to kind of preserve it. But it's lucky to have survived because it used to be attached to other buildings on a high street, but they've all been pulled away, and sometimes when that happens, any buildings left can become a little bit unstable structurally. So they left a big, huge slab of brick on the side of it that was probably once part of the building beside it. And they did that, I would imagine, in order to just help the stability of the building that was left. But not that long ago, that bit of brick started to come away a wee bit. And if left unchecked, apart from the danger to members of the public, as far as falling masonry is concerned, if it had actually completely come away, it could have pulled part of the building with it. So that building is lucky to have survived. On the other side of Nicholas Street, you once had the Old College bar. Keep forgetting the name of it. I'm tempted to call it the Black Bull Inn for some bizarre reason. The Old College bar. And that row of structures on the High Street between George Street and Nicholas Street There was a fire just a couple of years ago, the end result of which was the whole row was pulled down, and that again is now a derelict area of land. I want to have a look at that rectangle of ground, as I say, bordered by High Street, Shuttle Street, College Street and George Street, including Nicholas Street, just to have a look at perhaps what it once looked like, a wee bit of history of where it all kind of began, because it was part of medieval Glasgow, and how it looks today. So let's just do that.
In John MacArthur's map of Glasgow dating to 1778, you can see Nicholas Street, then called Bunn's Wynd. Nicholas Street was called Greyfriars Wynd in medieval times and became Bunn's Wynd sometime in the 18th century. The name changed to Nicholas Street in the mid-19th century. You can also see Greyfriars Wynd, called Shuttle Street these days, which sat on the eastern boundary of the Friary. Peter Fleming's 1807 map of the city shows the same layout, with the Greyfriars Wynd shown on the previous map, now named Shuttle Street on the map. You can also see that College Street has appeared, leading directly to the old college entrance on the High Street, as shown on this old photo dating to around 1880. You can see the High Street end of College Street in this photo dating to 1973. You can also see the only surviving building in Nicholas Street, once the British Linen Bank with its statue at the top, sneaking into shot on the right-hand side. The photo shows an area of the High Street vibrant with people, shops and grand architecture, most of which has gone. This photo dating to the year 2000 shows the George Street High Street corner that was recently demolished after a fire. You can see the end of Nicholas Street, with the British Linen Bank building on the left and the Old College Bar on the right. The Old College Bar was one of a number of pubs in the city that called itself the oldest pub in Glasgow. The building it was in probably dated to the early 19th century, but often buildings used existing foundations, and it would not be out with the bounds of possibility for parts of the structure below ground level to have dated back much further. This map shows streets around the Franciscan Friary around the 18th century, with more recent streets added with dotted lines. Nicholas Street is near the top right. And in this painting by William Simpson dating to the mid-19th century, we see a close at 207 High Street, which is very near Nicholas Street. These 1860s images by Thomas Annan show Broad Close at 167 High Street and a close at 193 High Street. Almost everything here was swept away during city improvements in the mid to late 19th century. In this photo of around 1965, we see the corner of College Street and High Street, and a rather grand building, again just down from Nicholas Street. It's actually an old college building that has clearly fallen on hard times and is now a bit tatty around the edges and housing shops at ground level. The building, designed by Robert and James Adam in the 1790s, was demolished in 1974. You can see a bit of that building sneaking into the left of this photo dating to 1955. We can also see the buildings between it and George Street, including the entrance to Nicholas Street further up on the right. We get a closer look at the entrance to Nicholas Street in this painting dating to 1891, just a couple of years before the British Linen Bank building was built. The house on the left was the birthplace of poet Thomas Campbell, and there is indeed a commemorative plaque on the wall of the existing building. On the other corner of Nicholas Street are the three balls of a pawnbroker above a pub, for many years the old college bar. A very interesting photo by Thomas Annan shows closely built housing in the area around the junction of High Street and George Street, allegedly around 1868. If we zoom in, we can see the buildings on the High Street between George Street and Nicholas Street, and a building that looks like it sits on the left of Nicholas Street and which bears a curious similarity to the current building that was built in 1895, complete with statue at the top. But it wasn't built when the photo was allegedly taken, unless there is an error and it does in fact date to the late 1890s. The photo also shows that the old college bar was probably once a taller tenement, and like a lot of the city's tenements has, for whatever reason, been cut down in size, presuming, of course, that the old college bar structure wasn't built after the photo was taken. We can see Nicholas Street before much of it was swept away in this photo by John R. Hume dating to 1969. We're looking along Nicholas Street towards the High Street, and you can see the cupola or small dome of the British Linen Bank building in the distance. This photo, again by John R. Hume, shows the junction of Shuttle Street and George Street, and a whole load of buildings that have now gone.
Well, this is Nicholas Street, and the red sandstone building just behind me, as I said earlier, built in 1895 as a branch of the British Linen Bank, and a structure that's very lucky to have survived. Just when I had a look at the other side of the building, they've sorted out that issue with the brick. They've removed that and kind of completely shored up the other end of the structure. And there's a plaque on the wall there telling you that before this building was built, that there was a house lived in by poet Thomas Campbell. I'd never heard of the man. At the beginning of this video, I was going to use some text from one of his poems, and I had to kind of look at most of them, but I didn't think they were very good. So I thought, I'm not using any of that. I dare say the man's work was popular in its day, and everybody's got a different opinion. It's probably still popular for some people today, but for me it just wasn't hitting the spot, you know. But here he used to live in a house just there. And behind the camera you've got a fenced off area where right there used to be the old college bar and the row of structures that was demolished just a couple of years ago because of a fire. and it's all overgrown with weeds. And I don't know what's going to happen to the site. The other side of this building, they're demolishing the garden because it's been shifted up the hill. I don't know what will happen to this land. And this wonderful old building standing on its Todd, thinking to yourself, what happens now? What are they going to build here? Is it going to be something bland and uninteresting, like far too many of the structures in this part of the High Street? Goodness knows. About 10 years ago, I took some photographs inside the old college bar, which used to sit at the end of this lane, Nicholas Street. They're not great photos, to be honest, they're really just snaps. I was using a cheap handheld camera. My photography skills aren't great. I'm struggling to deal with a kind of low light interior. But the photographs do nevertheless show the inside of the pub. You know, far too often when we see old photographs or paintings, we like to see how things used to be. We're given street scenes and buildings, the outside of buildings. Very rarely do we get to see the inside of what was going on inside these structures. So, as I say, I'm going to end the video here with these photographs showing the inside of the old college bar. You know, it was a pretty basic no-frills bar with kind of chalked signs for karaoke the odd night. But I'm sure for many local people it will be missed. And it will be missed, I'm sure, for a long time to come. I'm Eddie Burns. Take care.
I've been with a few of my cronies, one or two pals of mine. We went in a hotel, we did very well, and then we came out once again. And then we went into another, that is the reason I'm fool. We had 6 docking Dorises, then sang a chorus, just listen, I'll sing it to you. I belong to Glasgow, dear old Glasgow town. But there's something the matter with Glasgow, for it's going round and round. I'm only a common old working lad, as anyone can see. But when I get a couple of drinks on a Saturday, Glasgow belongs to me. There's nothing in being teetotal and saving a shilling or two. If your money you spend, you've nothing to lend, isn't that all the better for you? There's nae harm in taking a drappie, it ends all your troubles and strife, and it gives you the feeling that when you land home, well, you don't care a hang for your wife. That's the feeling you get when you... And I always say that the man that takes a good drink, he's a man. He's a man. Because when you're teetotal, you've always got a rotten feeling that everybody's your boss. People You don't realise yet that I stand here as the representative of the man who made the country what it is today, the working man. Fellow workmen, I have been deputed, not only deputed, but asked to speak on behalf of this working man. Now, these capitalists, these blooming capitalists, millionaires, where did they get their millions from? Us. Yeah, these are the people, the rich, the people with the money. And what do they do? What do they do? What do they do? Us. Yet these are the people, the rich. They're the very first to turn round and condemn a poor working fella. Why? Because they see that poor fella going home on a Saturday night after a hard week's work just a wee bit drunk. Is he not entitled? Is he not entitled as well as them? Yet they laugh at him. They condemn him. They do. They laugh. They point the skinger of thorn at him. They say, look at that common labourer.